Violence is on the rise in Colombia, so is the drug trade, so is corruption. This wasn't the way it was meant to be. My guest this week in the capital, Bogota, is the outgoing president, Juan Manuel Santos, who takes with him a Nobel Peace Prize for helping to end Latin America's longest-running insurgency. But does he deserve it? President Santos, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you.
You won a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing an end to the 50-year war with FARC, the FARC rebels. But your popularity in the country and the popularity of the peace deal has sunk dramatically in recent months. I think in February your approval rating was down to 14%. In the same month, just 17% said they were in favor of the agreement. Without public buy-in, you're in real danger of losing this peace, aren't you?
No, peace is irreversible. There's no way back. The agreements are there.
History would tell you something different.
No, the agreements are there. The agreements have been ratified by Congress, by the Constitutional Court, and the people will not allow the peace process to go back. Some people would like to bring war back, but that is something which will not happen. And I'm very proud to say that I'm leaving this country for the next government and next generations, a country in peace with no FARC.
But loud alarm bells ringing from the international community, particularly from the UN Security Council, the High Commissioner for Human Rights warning about a huge spike in violence, and what's more, high levels of resistance to the peace deal among those people who are needed to implement it. I'm talking about political and economic actors, legislative and judicial bodies, civil servants. You can't do without these people, however certain you are that this peace process is on track. You can't do without them. They make it work, or not.
In Congress, they just approved the last law that was necessary to put in place transitional justice. The commanders of the FARC in the last elections, they voted for the first time in their lives as now political leaders and not commanders of a guerrilla group. The areas where they operated are now areas where investment is arriving. And the peace process has been implemented according to the institution that was chosen to oversee the implementation at a very, very satisfactory rate. So things are moving. Of course, the expectations of many people are way beyond the capacity of any government to deliver in such a short amount of time.
But you severely underestimated the deep hostility of your people to the peace deal with the FARC, didn't you? Before the referendum, you went around saying to everybody you'd win by a landslide. In 2015, before the vote, you said in a TV interview, when I submit this to a plebiscite, I'm absolutely convinced that people will be overwhelmingly in favor of peace. But they weren't, at least not your peace.
I was wrong, as you were wrong with Brexit, for example. The English people also said there's no way that Brexit would win. It won. Referendums are answered for reasons different from the particular question. But the important thing is that the peace process and the agreements were renegotiated with the people who voted no. 95% of their suggestions and observations were taken into account.
But you didn't trust to put it back to the people, did you? You pushed it through Congress.
Because legally I was not obliged. The legal procedure in my country is that you go to the Congress, and Congress, by an overwhelming majority, ratified. And then the Constitutional Court, also by unanimity, said these agreements become part of the Constitution.
You made a promise that if the people turned it down, you would walk away. I remember seeing you say, there's no plan B here. Yeah, there's no plan B. Why did you break that promise
first of all,
push it through Congress instead of putting it back to the people?
I never said I would walk away. Never. I said I had no plan B because I was quite sure that I was going to win, but I never said that.
But you broke your word.
No, I didn't. What word did I break? Tell me.
That if the people turned it down, that would be the end of it.
I never said that.
There is now, though, a public level of despair, isn't there, taking root? The headline a few days ago in El Tiempo was simply this: how many more people must die? That's not a vote of confidence in the peace process, is it?
This is a problem that we have, and I am the first one to be preoccupied with what is happening. In many peace processes, this happens. The different criminal groups emerge after 54 years of war. We are addressing that problem. We have a strategy. This is the consequences of peace agreements and the transition to a more stable peace.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights blames your security forces for some of the violence. They're accused of 11 cases of extrajudicial execution in 2017, 8 allegedly committed by the military, 3 by the police. Are they out of control, these security forces?
No, the security forces, fortunately, are now the most respected institution in the country. And if you go to any poll, you will see that people respect our army, respect our police, because they learned that their legitimacy, which is based on respecting the human rights of the people, are of absolute importance, and they are acting in that way.
And yet there are numerous allegations reaching the UN that your forces are now actually assisting the illegal narcotics trade, specifically that they've been helping to transport material to produce cocaine, as well as machinery for illegal mining.
No. What you're saying is absolutely not true. This
is from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights.
The High Commissioner of Human Rights has not signaled any member of the armed forces as being responsible right now for extrajudicial assassinations. They were before, and
in March.
I made a stop to that when I was Minister of Defense. Today, our armed forces, fortunately, enjoy the respect of the international community, and the proof is that Colombia is the only country in the whole of Latin America that has been accepted as a global partner in NATO.
So you're saying they're not assisting in the illegal drugs trade?
No.
The UN went on to say that high levels of impunity in cases of corruption in the past have encouraged the persistence of such practices in the armed forces.
You might have individual people who might be bought by the drug mafia, but to say that the armed forces are out of control in that respect, on the contrary, if you go and see how much cocaine has been seized in the process of exporting to the markets where they consume, like Europe or United States, record levels. Never before had we seized more cocaine than the past 2 years.
Less than 3 months ago, the Security Council expressed serious concern for the continuing violence in conflict areas and called basically on your government to get an urgent grip. But are you able to get an urgent grip? We've seen latest figures shows 19 social leaders killed in a single month. In Catatumbo region, we've seen guerrilla warfare breaking out. This is a dramatic picture, isn't it?
Again, I will repeat one more time what I just said to you. This is a problem that we are addressing. We're addressing it not only with our armed forces, we're addressing it with the United Nations, with the OAS, with the NGOs, with the human rights organizations. We have a concrete plan. We met just a few days ago all these actors to see how we can do more to stop those killings. They are killings that come from the drug traffickers who don't want the voluntary substitution of the coca crops to succeed, because then the raw material will simply end. Others who don't want what we're doing to giving back to the peasants.
So they're filling the vacuum that the FARC left, aren't they?
So we are addressing that problem. More than 50% of those murders have been solved by the Attorney General.
You talked about the drug trade and you talked about what you've been doing, but White House data from the last month shows that coca cultivation rose 11% in 2017, a level, it said, unseen in more than 20 years of record keeping. Donald Trump said to you, record growth in cocaine production must be reversed. This was just last month.
And I said to him that 81% increase in coca consumption in the US is also unacceptable. This is a problem that the world has, and it's a problem that the world has to address in a different way.
But what about your part in this?
We have, for the first time, a concrete strategy that will allow us to be effective in eradicating the coca plantations and substituting them for legal crops. For the first time, never before, because of the conflict, had we done this, had we been able to do this.
921 metric tons of cocaine in 2017, up almost 20% from the year before.
And today, and this year,
and that's going in the right direction?
And this year, we're going to eradicate 110,000 hectares, 40,000 by voluntary substitution, 70,000 by forced eradication, and that is half of the whole production, more than half. And we're seizing.
Now, this is what you're trying to do. I'm talking about concrete results of what you've done so far.
So far,
which are not encouraging, are they?
No, so far, they are very encouraging, because so far, last year.
Levels unseen in more than 20 years of record keeping. That's encouraging.
Last year, we eradicated more than 50,000 hectares. And this is not a simple number, it's a reality. And we seized more than 500 tons of cocaine being exported to the world markets. That is not a fiction, that is reality. We are fighting a war that is being lost by the world. Colombia has been the country that has made the highest sacrifice in this war on drugs that the world declared 45 years ago and has not won.
But you're refusing to accept your part.
No, we of course accept what we have. It's a struggle that has cost us our best leaders, our best journalists, our best judges, our best policemen, and
it brings more corruption and more violence to this country.
And in spite of that, we are still the #1 exporter of cocaine to the world markets, in spite of the tremendous effort we've done. Why? Because the world has a wrong approach to the drug problem.
It's not just the world's fault, is it? You can't just blame consumption.
Sorry?
You have a market here that works, isn't it? That provides people with fantastically huge sums of money.
Who consumes the cocaine? Who? Your country.
Around the world.
Oh, so it's a co-responsibility. It's your responsibility and my responsibility.
So it's yours as well.
Yeah, of course it's us as well, but it's not us only. And we have learned more than any other country how to fight the whole chain of the drug trafficking business. And we would like to have more support and more co-responsibility of the consuming countries.
Let's talk about FARC and the assets that they were required in the peace deal to hand over to you. They declared a derisory figure of around 332 million in total assets. This doesn't even represent a fraction of what they have from years of drug dealing, extortion, kidnapping, illegal gold mining, does it?
Who says that?
Well, you've already seized more than 200 million worth of assets than they declared.
You know what they said?
So they've been lying, haven't they?
You know what they said? They said that the FARC had so much money that they were going to buy the elections and that they were going to take over the country. That's what they said. You know how many votes they got? 58,000.
Are you saying that they don't have huge sums abroad?
Where are they?
Are you saying they don't have them?
If you tell me where are they, we will go and seize them.
You've already seized more than $200 million worth of assets that they didn't even declare. So they've been lying about this, haven't you?
Where are those assets? And I will go and seize them immediately.
You did. You seized 200 more than they declared.
Because we have been effective in going after
So they lied.
assets.
They lied.
They might, of course, they might have lied. But
they're making a mockery of the deal, aren't they?
We are going after their assets, and if you tell me that there is a huge amount of money that they have outside, tell me where they are.
You're happy that they're making a mockery of the peace deal by not declaring these assets?
Well, but if you tell me where they are.
I'm telling you, you've already discovered 200 million more than they declared.
And so that proves that they have more?
lying.
And so that proves that they have more?
But it
Is that
proves they've
true?
been lying
Tell me,
to you, doesn't it?
If they've been lying, they will lose their benefits.
What did they declare to you? Assets like broomsticks, orange squeezers, mugs, talcum powder.
And gold and money and their catches full of arms. This is a peace deal which is an example to the rest of the world. There's a transitional justice system that for the first time is being negotiated under the terms of the Statute of Rome. This is something that is already working, so there'll be no impunity as there has been in the other peace processes around the world.
Well, the International Criminal Court, talking of the Rome Statute, is leaning over your shoulder and stressing the need for rigorous verification of the execution of sentences, isn't it? It's constantly reminding you.
But I'm sorry, if they have not been sentenced yet, how can they claim the rigorous
because they're worried that the impunity is going to be a feature of this
transitional
deal.
justice is just starting. It's just starting. How can you claim that they have not been rigorously complied with because they have just started? Nobody has been condemned yet.
They've already expressed concerns about some of the language in your Legislative Act 01, which they say could allow people in positions of command responsibility to escape their responsibilities.
Who says that?
The ICC said this.
No.
Yes, they did.
No. They have said what is working right now for us. It's acceptable. The transitional justice that you're applying is acceptable. There is no, so far, any criticism of what has been put in place, and I repeat, it's just starting to work.
Well, the deputy prosecutor earlier this year, who visited, said there were concerns over parts of your legislation in the Legislative Act.
Before the final piece of legislation was approved in Congress, before he said that. But
this is May we're talking about. This is May.
But in the final legislation that was approved, what was approved was something acceptable to all the parties involved.
You talked about no impunity in the deal with the FARC, but let's talk about the cases of so-called false positives in your army, where soldiers massacred innocent civilians and pretended they were terrorists. All this in order to boost their results and take advantage of bonuses and rewards. Thousands of cases.
Shameful
thousands of
policy,
cases.
yes.
The government of Colombia consistently played this down, didn't they, this appalling phenomenon. They told a UN rapporteur in 2009 the practice was not widespread and that such unlawful killings were isolated instances. This turned out to be a lie, didn't it? They weren't isolated incidents.
You know who stopped those false positives? I did. I stopped those false positives.
They were taking place when you were defense minister, weren't
and
they?
that's why where I took action, and they went down to zero. No more false positives. And those responsible for false positives, they have to go to the transitional justice and be judged and condemned.
In 2012, 2 years into your presidency, a UN special rapporteur noted the persistent high rate of impunity for such human rights violations due to the lack of progress in criminal investigations. So for years, no one in government was in a hurry to see anybody in senior ranks, I'm talking about above the level of colonel, brought to justice, were they?
Well, right now we have many generals who have been investigated. They are going to submit themselves to the transitional justice. And
you really think they're going to be convicted? Any generals are going to?
Of course.
They haven't been?
No, because they have not started the process of the transitional justice. It's just starting. The first general this week announced he's going to submit himself to the transitional justice.
There was glaring evidence over the years that was supplied by the UN, who were concerned that in 2011, this is an example of impunity, in 2011, a year after you became president, members of the military who had actually been convicted of unlawful executions were still doing their previous jobs. They were detained, he said, in conditions of considerable comfort in a military facility and were allowed unregulated movement outside the facility. People had already been convicted of extrajudicial killings.
So if they're convicted, how can they be in
Exactly. How can they live in comfortable conditions?
If they are convicted, they no longer belong to the military. I mean, how can you say that one and the other are simultaneous? This is impossible.
This is what the UN said. Just 4 months ago, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights noted that high-ranking officers in the chain of command, including some of those under investigation, have actually been promoted in the last 2 years instead of being subjected to a vetting process. Why is that?
If they're under investigation, are they guilty before being judged and being? Are they guilty? No.
You think they might at least be suspended if they're suspected?
The presumption of innocence is something that in your country is sacred, in my country also.
A presumption of innocence with a murder charge?
No, presumption of innocence. You're not
being investigated
guilty until proven guilty.
You're not being investigated for parking offences, you're being investigated for murder.
If you're investigated, but if you're not convicted until you're convicted, before you're presumed innocent, in your country or in any other country and in my country.
According to the ICC, since 2012, no one over the rank of colonel has so far been convicted. You have figures from 2016, 2,000 cases being investigated, 4,190 victims are known, or these were the figures supplied by your authorities. Mm-hmm. What's the true figure in this? How many were killed by your army, dressed up as...
Too many.
No, but how many? How many?
Too many. I don't know. I have no idea.
You have no idea. You're number, president.
But too many, and I've been fighting that since I was Minister of Defense. And I repeat to you, the person responsible for stopping that obnoxious procedure was me. When I changed the whole policy, I took many generals out of the army and took action with the authorities, with the Attorney General, and that's why they stopped.
Mr. President, there were internal investigations in the Defense Ministry which came out with figures, but these have never been published. Don't you think after 50, 60 years of conflict that the Colombian people actually deserve the truth about what their army did to them?
But the truth has come out.
The numbers, you can't tell me the numbers, the real numbers.
If you tell me how many exactly, I have no idea of exactly how many. I'm telling you, too much, too many.
But that's not information. You're not opening the files and telling people what really happened.
If you had asked me before this program, tell me exactly how many, I would just simply...
You could have gone to the files that remain classified to this day and you would have told me.
No, because the number of people who were killed is not classified. This is open information for anybody.
So why has nobody printed the real number? Why in May this year are we still having a former policeman co-authoring a report saying that it could be as many as 10,000 people?
Well, that's ridiculous. 10,000 is something which
How do you know if you don't know what the true figure is?
Well, don't twist my words. I'm telling you, I don't know the exact figure. Even one for me is too many. And I've been fighting this false positives since I was minister, and again, they went down to zero. So,
but it's time for some transparency about what this happened
in
this process over the years.
This is exactly what we're doing with the transitional justice.
Yeah, but you're not doing it with the false positives.
Of course we're doing with the false positives. The truth is coming out. One of the benefits of the peace process is that the rights of the victims to know the truth, to be repaired, to have justice, and the non-repetition, those are the rights that are coming out and being guaranteed by the peace process and transitional justice.
And yet you won't open the files and tell people with the false positives what really happened and who was involved.
Of course, this is coming out and will come out. When the transitional justice starts to work. How many times do I have to tell you? The transitional justice is just starting to work. And the truth is one crucial element in the peace process. And as soon as the transitional justice and the truth comes out, everybody will know exactly what happened in a conflict of 54 years that killed more than 250,000 people, displaced more than 8.5 million people, and that we, thank God, brought to an end.
Do you deserve the Nobel Peace Prize?
It's not for me to answer that. It's the Nobel Committee.
How do you think history will judge that?
Well, I think we ended 54 years of war, and I think the country is very grateful for that.
And people are still waiting for transparency.
For transparency, where?
Here, in this country, about what went on for all these years.
That's exactly what the peace process is trying to bring out. That's exactly why the truth, we have a truth commission that is bringing out exactly what you're asking.
And you think they'll get it from the new president? You think they'll get it from the new president?
They'll have to get it from everybody. This is a conflict where many people were involved from both sides, and the truth has to come out.
President Santos, thanks very much for being on Conflicts.
Thank you.
Thank you.